Hey, thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and happy Monday, happy first day of June, and happy first day of hurricane season. Now, we have a lot to talk about today, including Denver and the hail forecast this afternoon. That area of the country, central Colorado, eastern Colorado, western Kansas, western Nebraska, is in that large hail threat for this afternoon, expecting up to baseballs in this area. Other than that, we are expecting all severe weather hazards for today, but some are expecting stronger wind gusts than others, some expecting larger hail than others. We'll talk about exactly where. Then on Tuesday and Wednesday, storms are almost a copy and paste forecast of each other. We've got one area that targets the western side of North and South Dakota, and then Wednesday that targets the eastern side of North and South Dakota. Now, we'll talk about exactly who's in the storm risk. Texas also gets in the mix there as well. Right now, we have a severe thunderstorm watch ongoing for areas highlighted there in yellow. Let's get some details on this watch. This goes until 7 o'clock tonight as we're watching for this long line of storms moving through the northern portion of Alabama and Mississippi. Let's move this around so you can see those storms right now that are severe warned. Take a look at this severe thunderstorm warning just outside of Tupelo, Huntsville, and Florence. This severe thunderstorm warning mainly for 60-mile-per-hour wind gust and quarter-size hail, but in this area of the country, I think that wind is going to be a much larger threat. That hail, not as much of a large threat here. Again, very, very similar to what we're seeing going through Huntsville right now. We're about to approach Huntsville, 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, but not too worried about that hail threat. Later on this afternoon, across places like Colorado, Nebraska, that's where we're expecting that larger hail threat. So let's move on. Let's actually, before we talk about what we're expecting today, talk about what we've seen over the last 24 hours. As I left you guys on Friday, we were waiting for storms in Lubbock, and we really tried last night to get another round of storms in Lubbock. We just couldn't get there. Now, we did have a few showers and storms across Missouri at the very beginning of the day yesterday. Going down into Texas now, you can see that we have several storms that just sat on the outside of Lubbock all day yesterday. From the afternoon into the late evening, it sometimes warned for baseball-sized hail just to the south of Crosbyton. However, Lubbock itself finally got a storm later that evening, only warned for quarter-sized hail at a very short period of time. After that, our attention turned up to Missouri and Kansas as we had a line of storms, some of these producing some really large hail across Emporia. That was probably the most impressive storm yesterday, was that Emporia hailstorm. And then all the way up into Kansas City through the overnight hours where we had some really strong wind in Kansas City, about 80 miles an hour for a wind gust reported there in the city. Other than that, that hail stayed farther to the north of the city. That's what we saw yesterday, and actually yesterday was the last day of May. We are officially on our June 1st, the first day of June. Yeah, that's what June 1st is. Let's take a look at some of the crazy video that we had over the month of May. And let's also bring in meteorologist Martin Lauermore. Now, Martin did a look back on what we saw in May in terms of hail threats, our local storm reports, our hail reports in that area and across the U.S. Martin, tell us exactly what you saw in May. Were we above average, below average in terms of hail?
I mean, when it comes to in terms of hail, we were way below average.
Way below average.
Way below average. We entered May seeing a we were much above the normal. And then as we went through May, the hail reports just dried up. We just didn't see much of anything throughout the entirety of this entire May. But as we do take a look, I'm actually going to show you guys what we are going to be seeing for this month. I'll show you a graph in just a little bit. Things are been showing up where we have been watching just no hail reports compared to normal, way below our normal for those hail LSRs.
Yeah, those hail LSRs. I mean, so few for May. I think that's on your screen, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
There we go. There it is now.
Oh yeah, look at that. Way below normal.
Yeah, so just what you're looking at right now, and once this actually, let me adjust this real quick. Oh, now I'm gone. There we go. Alrighty. So the one thing I do want to note is this little green line here. This little green line is the culprit that we've been seeing over the past several days. So, or the past several months. So green line and the black line is really what you're going to be looking at specifically. So the black line is your climate normal over the past 15 years. You look at the green line, that is where we are for 2026 hail LSRs, or local storm reports. So as we went into our May, our April was very active, especially that last week of April. Man, it was a very busy one here at HailTrace. But as we got into May, we started falling behind, and this is about the time of year where we see the most hail storm reports throughout this entire year. So we kind of fell behind, and to a sense that we really haven't seen in a very long time. So actually I want to show our graphics real quick just to show what we're seeing for comparing to the normal local storm reports for our May versus what we normally see. Taylor, could you advance it just one real quick for me? So comparing this right here, our graph from our normal. So we take a look at where we're sitting at for our average, roughly about 2,100 hail reports through the month of May, which, 2,000 sounds like a lot, but it really averages around 70, 65 to 70 just about every day, which is, we don't see 60 to 65 every day, but we'll get a day where we get 300 or 350. And that really helps even out the other days where we're seeing 40 to 45. So 2026, we had 755. Again, it sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. That's about averaging close to about 25 a day, which really in a sense is not a lot. You look at something like 2024, we had 3,200. That is over 100 reports every day. Granted, you had some big events there that really helped out and pushed those along. But our averages, we see them most of these years. 2025, we had 1,500. 2023, 2022, we had roughly around that 2,000 marker. Going back a couple more years beyond that, actually very consistent in our late 2010s. We had between 22, about right around 2,300 for 3 years in a row. And we had a couple low years in 2020 and 2021, but really, overall, it's been a comparing what we're seeing from last year or this year versus the normal. It's a completely different universe. We're seeing less than half of what we normally see for our local storm reports. And the reason why I really want to note this is because in terms of other reports, we're actually not too far behind. So I want to pull back up the graph real quick that we were showing before, and to show you guys exactly what we're seeing when it comes to tornadoes and also hail, or tornadoes and wind. So let's take a look first at tornadoes, because we are still a little bit behind on tornadoes, but it's been not just May, but we also had that long stretch. You could see from mid-March to almost mid-April, we had very few tornado reports. So it's not just this time of year that's really been lagging us down, but I want to show you the wind reports, because the wind, we're actually above our normal, and by roughly close to about 700 above the normal. Actually, real quick, we are actually almost 1,000 above the normal, which that is a substantial amount for what we're kind of seeing as a low tornado and low hail risk, or not low hail and tornado risk, but just overall the year has been kind of lacking when it comes to especially our hail and a little bit when it comes to our tornado. We did have a pretty slow May when it came to tornadoes. I mean, me and Taylor have been talking about this over the past couple of days or weeks on how until the 27th of May, we didn't have a single tornado report in the state of Oklahoma. And Taylor, if I remember correctly, I think we ended 2026 in May at 2 tornado reports in total. So, for the month where we expect the most tornado reports, it's really weird to walk out of the busiest month of severe weather season with 2 tornado reports in the state of Oklahoma under our belt. That just feels wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we expect to have much more for this time of the year. Now, we've been very, very quiet in terms of tornadoes here in Oklahoma. We've been quiet across most of the nation as well. I know some of us have gotten more tornadoes than what we've seen here across the state. And we're not expecting any tornadoes here in Oklahoma today. Actually, that will be mainly across the western portion of Kansas, Nebraska, and eastern Colorado. That's where that tornado risk is for today. And all of that thanks to a low pressure system that's sitting right over the state right now, which we'll talk more about here in just a few minutes. We've given you updates so far on that severe thunderstorm watch that is in place until 7 o'clock this evening. And we also have ongoing severe thunderstorm warnings, mainly for wind across this area of the northern portion of Mississippi and Alabama. Now let's talk about that hail risk today. All of this thanks to a low pressure system, which you can see highlighted here in yellow. Do you see this low pressure system that's moving up to the north and off to the east of the eastern portion of the Rockies, okay? So just barely over the Rockies. What does that do? Well, any of that air that goes over the Rockies will intensify storms as they come over the mountaintops and onto more of that flatter ground. Now, what that does, it's a very common process that we see all the time this time of year. What that does is that gives us our hailers for the day. We also have ongoing eastern wind that's coming up and bringing in some decent moisture into this area. So what does that mean? That means two things. We're expecting some hailers across this area today. We're also expecting that tornado risk. So we have two areas to watch out for today. We have that area across the western portion of Kansas and Nebraska, eastern Colorado. We also have an area of storms that are ongoing right now. I've already showed you that in terms of your severe thunderstorm watch, right? Across the northern portion of Mississippi, Alabama, and eastern Arkansas. Tomorrow, we go right back up to the plains. Remember that low pressure system that's sitting just to the west of this severe weather risk? Well, that northern movement is also going to bring storms up to the north and South Dakota for tomorrow. And I'm calling it a copy and paste forecast because there's not too much of a change in what we're expecting on Tuesday versus Wednesday. It's copy and paste with just a little bit of a shift to the east. After that, we already have a pretty decent idea of what's going to happen on Thursday. A level 1 marginal risk for storms most likely will be upgraded for Thursday. Colin is asking, are there any more risks for Omaha this week? Yeah, Omaha, you guys saw some storms yesterday, I think so. You're right on the very edge of that storm risk for today, so you most likely have more of a wind than a hail risk today, and an extremely low tornado risk for today. Tomorrow, you're out of the severe weather. However, it gets a little bit closer on Wednesday for severe storms in your area, maybe just to the west of you guys on Wednesday. Anything related to Kentucky, well, you guys are going to get a little bit of rain, but for the most part, you're going to stay out of that severe weather risk today. Not worried about Kentucky. Do you have any rain the next few days? No, you guys will actually stay pretty dry over the next few days. Most of that rain will be down in Texas, okay? We've got a level 2 flash flood risk in this area where we can expect scattered flash flooding across the western portion of Texas. But before we go into the next few days, let's stay with today first. Okay, here's a look at your wind risk. I told you we've got two areas to watch for here. One that's mainly a hail and tornado, one that's more of a wind risk. Tennessee to the northern portion of Mississippi and Alabama, areas that we've already highlighted for ongoing storms. This area from McCook to Denver, some strong winds are possible, however, not the biggest risk for today. We'll also see some scattered storms from Amarillo all the way down to Lubbock, where you could see a little bit of hail, but some strong winds also possible here. And then, of course, that wind risk primarily is our focus down in the southeast. Here's a look at your tornado forecast for today. I mentioned earlier just outside of Denver, so we're riding I-25 here and just a little bit to the east. Limon, Colorado, Goodland, Kansas, and I think that's Scott City, Kansas. Also Scotts Bluff, Nebraska, all in that level 1 tornado risk today. I'm not expecting an all-out tornado outbreak, but I am expecting a few tornadoes to be reported. And your hail risk. A lot of people jump on here for the hail forecast. Here we go. Baseball-sized hail is possible for today, mainly in eastern Colorado and western Kansas. Where are we expecting those larger hail sizes? So I will tell you that the Storm Prediction Center has actually pulled this hail risk. The Storm Prediction Center has actually mainly put that hail risk up in eastern Colorado, but I have pulled that hail risk all the way down into Texas. Very, very low risk to see hail down here. However, I do think that those hail sizes could be a bit bigger in the northern portion of West Texas, so Texas Panhandle. Here's a look at that risk for today. Level 2 for Cheyenne, level 2 for Denver, level 2 for McCook. You're going to have a lot of scattered storms in this area, some of those bringing some of those larger hailstones, anywhere from $50 to golf ball size hail for your most likely hail size. However, up to baseball-size hail possible. Moving on, hail not really too much of a big issue down in the southeast. Let's talk about timeline. You've already got ongoing storms across our southeastern states. That'll last into the evening hours. Your big timeline for Denver, eastern Colorado will be anytime after 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon, probably closer to 3, continuing through the evening hours. A little bit later for places in Kansas. Let's actually fast forward. I want to get to that timeline right now. So here's your significant hail model, and then what we'll do is we'll overlay your future radar on top of that. That's how we'll get the timeline here. We are expecting these lapse rates to increase into the afternoon hours. So what you're going to see is you're going to see lots of oranges and yellows on the board, indicating that we could see some pretty large hail. Anywhere from Denver to just east of Cheyenne into North Platte areas. Now let's put that reflectivity, the radar, on here. So this is future radar. Ooh, our first storm, 2 o'clock this afternoon. Again, not too impressive until it comes over the mountain ranges, and once it hits that flatter land, that's whenever these things intensify, and they often intensify very quickly. So right around I-25 is whenever those storms really start to blow up, and they continue that intensification as they move farther to the east across Colorado and the western side of Nebraska, really just hugging that Wyoming and Nebraska state line all the way down into the Kansas state line. We're expecting storms to continue through the late night hours here into Kansas and Nebraska. Any questions on your storm risk today, including places like Denver or Kansas or Nebraska, John? All good for now? You're good. Okay, so 24-hour rainfall totals, mainly that rain has been across the southeast and portions of Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, and Tennessee. That's where we saw storms yesterday. That's where we're seeing storms this morning and this afternoon. We talked about your flash flood risk earlier, mainly down in New Mexico and Texas over the next few days. Moving on here, let's talk about what we're expecting for tomorrow and Wednesday. Well, we again are really focused on this low pressure system right here. So we go up to North and South Nebraska. So let's see that next risk for storms on Tuesday. Mainly anywhere from excuse me, did I say Nebraska earlier? I meant South Dakota. I didn't even realize that I said that. Okay, so we're talking about South and North Dakota. What we're watching for here is some large hail in these areas, anywhere from $half to golf ball size, maybe getting up to baseball size hail. However, I do think the most significant hail risk is today. Not as impressed with the hail risk for tomorrow, but again, we're watching for the Dakotas and western Nebraska. Amarillo and Lubbock, you guys are in the hail risk for tomorrow, but it's a very low risk for storms tomorrow. I'm not too worried about storms in Texas tomorrow other than that flood risk. Up to baseball size hail for tomorrow, and then we've got another round of storms coming on Wednesday. Let's fast forward here. We've got a level 2 level 2 tornado risk on Tuesday, and then let's shift over just barely to the east a few miles for Wednesday. Anywhere from Grand Forks all the way down to Aberdeen. That's where we're expecting the largest hail on Wednesday. Thursday, we also have a storm risk. We stay in the plains on Thursday for that storm risk. Take a look at this. Anywhere from the northern portion of Nebraska into the eastern side of Wyoming, that's your storm risk on Thursday. I do expect this to get upgraded and expanded to include more people. So if you're around this area across the plains, keep an eye on Thursday. I think we could see a pretty decent risk for storms. And there's your severe weather forecast. Other than that, temperatures are pretty warm. They're above average today, a little bit cooler as we head into the middle of the week, at least for the southern plains. And then we've got warm temperatures in the Midwest by the end of the week. Here's a good question. What time is Denver supposed to get hit or supposed to get bit? I expect after 2 o'clock, coming over the mountain range, across I-25 by about 3 o'clock. Let's take a look at the timeline. I can pull it up for you guys. So here's your significant hail model. If we overlay your future radar on top of this, what you'll see are your first few storms that are popping up by about 1 or 2 o'clock. Remember, this is Central Time. They'll intensify pretty quickly going across I-25 between 3 and 4 o'clock this afternoon, and then moving across I-25 into the eastern portion of the state right around or shortly after your evening commute. These storms may be on top of Denver right around your evening commute. But they'll be passing out very quickly, and you should have a mostly dry evening after that. By about 7 o'clock, it's really just a big show out in eastern Colorado, western Nebraska, and western Kansas. So to answer your timeline about Denver, anytime after 2 o'clock until 7, 2 to 7. Any other weather questions? Where's the hail in Austin? You guys are out of the hail risk this week. No hail today, no hail tomorrow. I don't think you guys got any hail yesterday either. Let's see. Yep, not expecting. I mean, you guys may get some rain. I know that that part of Texas is in a level 2 flood risk, but you are not in the storm risk. Any other questions? All good? Okay, awesome. Well, let's move on. Let's take a look into June. This is June 6th through the 10th. It's looking pretty warm. I mean, you've got the summertime heat building in, and then you even have warmer temperatures on top of that. We also have some good rainfall coming, especially around the southern portion of the states all the way up to the Midwest, above average rainfall totals. And there's your forecast. The video recap, we can add that back in after the forecast. We're all good there, but thank you. There's your forecast. Thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox. As always, you can go back and rewatch this forecast if you have more questions, or put that in the comments section. We're pretty good about monitoring the comments section after the forecast is over. As always, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We always do a behind the scenes forecast on TikTok, so if you want to see behind the scenes here, head over to TikTok. And if you're interested in a wind, hail, or tornado map, so for those of you who are looking for hail in Austin, we have all of those storms mapped from like the past 10 years at HailTrace.com. So if you want to find an old storm, head over to HailTrace.com. We have all of those for you, or give us a call at 855-334-4245, or email us at info@hailtrace.com for more information on our subscriptions. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here, same time.